My brother Sam always treated me like trash. I was a lonely kid from skipping grades, so I didn't know what friend/sibling relationships were supposed to be for a long time. I forgave him for a lot of stuff I shouldn't have. I've always had this vibe where people are calmer around me and don't put up a guard, either, so I get told/hear a lot. Sam knows how much I've always wanted to be his friend, too. So I don't think he ever considered what might happen if he really, truly pissed me off. By 30, I hoped maybe he'd be mellowing out, but no. He only reaches out last minute on holidays and when he needs something from us. I live with my parents. I've grown emotionally as an adult, valuing myself. Realizing how shitty he treated me, I started to resent him and stopped reaching out to hang/talk. We didn't talk for months. On Mother's Day we went out with Sam and fiancée Leah for brunch. I had a bad migraine but went in case Sam bowed out last minute like he usually does. I didn't want my mom to feel sad. Before, I'd be very lively trying to talk to him. I barely spoke 10 words to him, maybe 100 the whole meal. The only time he spoke to me was to talk down to me. The restaurant is busy so we leave our table and go outside. It's hot and bright, bad conditions for a migraine. Leah has chronic migraine so you think he'd be sympathetic, but he didn't even notice I wasn't well. Sam didn't get mom a gift, just a card. It's a sonogram. Sam and Leah have been engaged for a while, but no one likes Leah, and for good reason, the posts I could write. My parents are pretending to be happy, but I don't bother. After a little while the light and heat are making me feel sick so I ask my dad if we can go now. Sam snaps that no one asked me to come. I wasn't invited. Mom quickly shut that down, and I tried to walk away to the car and sit, but he said, "Wow, that's shitty family for you." All hell broke loose on him. I turned around and screamed, not caring about our 7-year age gap, difference in height, or strength. The entire group froze in shock because I'm always soft-spoken and gentle. I reminded him he admitted he wasn't happy in his relationship and Leah made him miserable, and would make a terrible mother, but was afraid of being alone. I took him in when our parents kicked him out. He hurt me for trying to sleep in my own bed, then didn't talk to me for 2 years because I didn't let him drive drunk that night. Picking me up by my neck in a rage and holding me against a wall until I blacked out, giving me PTSD he has the gall to deny and laugh about. Never visiting me in the hospital or the 3 months recovery at home after I was in an accident. Leah had a tragic one before and still brings it up, so you'd think to have sympathy. When he finally unfroze, his argument was pathetic. It was that my parents paid for the college apartment. They paid for his too, but okay. And this was the reason when I asked him if I could stay in worst case scenario after fighting with our mom, he said no. Then his stock reaction when he knows he's wrong, puffing his chest up saying lay a hand on me bro. Mom would never kick me out. Sometimes we fight, as you do with people you live with. It helps my anxiety to make backup plans I don't actually need and Sam is aware of that. I told him to never, ever contact me again, because he is not my fucking family. Dad gently steered me back to the car and I sat inside. They talked for a while after I got in but I wasn't listening. Leah isn't speaking to her family, and now doesn't even have his family. Way to admit we aren't family. Leah tried to explain that Sam declined because they have 2 large dogs and they were worried something might happen to my tiny dog, Pebbles. Mom said I never planned to bring Pebbles, because I couldn't separate her from my parents' dog. Leah looked confused and said Sam told her I wanted to bring the dog. Sam said he'd never visit the house again as long as I lived there and tried to get my parents to kick me out. Mom shut that down too and clarified that I'm higher on the totem pole than he is, by a lot, and it's his own fault. At first Mom was torn. She agreed that my brother was completely wrong, but didn't want to just cut off one of her kids. But as I laid out all the shit he'd done/admitted to me, that changed. Mom was furious and apologized that they didn't punish him enough when we were kids, figuring siblings fight and I was always the kid that was fine. She texted Sam that an apology would go a long way, and he declined, not ready to deal with her yet. My parents told me that if I'm not invited to the wedding, they won't go either, so he would finally have some consequences. I wouldn't go. It's the principle. Some of what I told her was the actual sum of money he'd stolen from Dad over the years. We knew, but didn't think it was 800, had sex in my and my parents' bed, and just how badly he hurt me. Sam only has his good job because Dad pulled strings. And this ungrateful brat didn't even text him on Father's Day, going off on Mom for reminding him to text, because it ruined his day. That pissed us off a lot and while we were venting, realized how badly he fucked himself. Leah doesn't have many friends, no close females. Sam doesn't either, he made poor choices. She isn't speaking with her sister, Sil, or Mom because she's throwing a tantrum that Grandma won't have undivided attention on her kid. I always wanted to feel included, so they were probably banking on me to help plan the baby shower and appointments for wedding details. I enjoy organization. No idea who'll help her now. Sam would force me to dog sit when he lived here, knowing I can't put an animal in the crate if I'm there, and never gave me a heads up/asked. Leah already alienated Mom for babysitting with a bitchy comment years ago and Leah said she wouldn't want strangers watching her kids. So they probably figured I'd be the compassionate sister, as always, and watch my nibbling. Sam often used me as a therapist. When my dog of 14 years passed, I got nothing. One of his dogs is older and already blind and deaf. He told me he was terrified of the day she passed because he wouldn't know what to do. Valp, can't lean on me anymore. I haven't bothered checking, but figure the engagement is strained. Sam is a known liar and I can barely try to bluff in a game of Uno. Leah heard what Sam said about his feelings towards her, and realized Sam lies to her about me. Wonder how that's working out. Don't know, don't care. They're both blocked. We have a bet going that he doesn't want to deal with me yet because he thinks by his birthday, I'll cave in and get him a gift, and he'll get out of this with no apologies yet again. His mistake. Edit, people requested names versus initials for readability and fixed a typo. Oop, don't worry. Sam can drop down and cry for forgiveness, but it won't be coming. Our dad doesn't show emotion much, and when he heard about the cash total, he was so sad and said I can't even trust family. My heart broke. Before that I was open to real apologies and effort to repair our relationship, but that was the last straw for me. Oop, oh yeah, my stomach absolutely dropped seeing the sonogram. Me and the fam always dreaded the day they actually got married or pregnant. We were holding out hope he'd come to his senses at some point. Leah in particular can barely manage to take care of herself. Sucks they both burned bridges to their villages. Update 1. So, my dad's birthday was last week. My mom and I tried to make it extra special, all things considered. We usually celebrate, but nothing big. My dad's workplace does these family appreciation days at various places every year, with free passes. Sam works there too, but has never really paid attention to the dates unless he plans on going, which he doesn't unless we do it as a family, usually. So dad's birthday was during the week and the appreciation day was Saturday, at an amusement park. I used to go every year, but I was in an accident a few years ago where I got a concussion and have ongoing intracranial hypertension. Too much fluid is sloshing around up there. I have to take meds so it doesn't press on my optic nerve too severely and slowly make me blind, so roller coasters are off the table for me. Which is tragic, I love them. Since Sam never bothered asking, or checking on me after the accident, I don't think he knows that. Shockingly, Sam did actually text Dad on his birthday. He asked if my parents wanted to do something over the weekend, about midweek. Dad said they'd see later on as the weekend came closer, because Dad takes a week of his vacation around his birthday and has been doing a lot of projects around the house. Then on Friday, Sam texted again, asked if he wanted to do something. Saturday was off the table, of course, and my dad returned to work on Sunday morning for a short shift. So he asked my mom if she wanted to go. Mom said no, but Dad was free to go without her if he wanted to. My dad said he wasn't going to go without her. So Dad said no, they were busy Saturday and he worked Sunday. Mom told me about the text last night and I mentioned that I really hoped that it would have been a no from them, even if they weren't busy. Mom reassured me, then cracked a joke, maybe we'll get back to him about his birthday near Christmas. Sam is famously bad at celebrating things / giving gifts / cards until long past the normal window, despite us living about 10 minutes from each other. Like, bruh, what the hell did you think was gonna happen? We're all very aware that I'm the favorite child, especially since Sam is such an asshole. It was really the laugh I needed after everything. Side note, a commenter pointed out that when Sam Ed me out, what happened was actually strangulation of a minor, you know, a fucking felony crime. God, that tore me up inside. I was used to my brother getting physical, so somehow crime never crossed my mind up to that point. He literally escaped the consequences on that one. I kinda wanna see if there's anything I can do, but I think it's been too long since. Anyway, my mom told me about the text after that. It did make me laugh, so it helped. Like, oh, man. I wonder if Sam is ready to deal with me yet, LMFAO. ETA, I guess people don't understand what's happening here? Sam probably doesn't realize there were actual plans on Saturday, and Sam and my dad work at the same place. It'd be easy to find his schedule for Sunday. Either way, he's going to think my parents aren't seeing him on my behalf and realize that they aren't forgiving him either, for the very first time. When Sam choked me out, what happened was actually strangulation of a minor, you know, a fucking felony crime. Oop, well, yeah, it definitely hit me hard when it was pointed out to me. I got really worried for my future nibbling, considering that Sam obviously hasn't grown out of his violent, short temper from how he reacted to that fight. But it's been like, 15 years. Which sounds awful to still be hurting about, but I mean, trauma is still done. I'm also kind of worried about nibbling because Sam has history of downward spiral / stressful times turning him into a lazy, intoxicated asshole. And like I said in my first post, Leah can barely take care of herself. I feel bad for that baby already, but I think Sam is counting on me feeling that way. I also just genuinely don't know where to start with the legal thing. I feel like if I went down to the station they'd laugh me out of there based on the time frame alone, but I don't know. That could be the anxiety talking. Oop, I sincerely doubt they would be allowed in the house. Leah has complained about us oming over unannounced too often, which means like, twice in a year. Both times when cars had trouble nearby. Never mind that her family gets to visit frequently. We also genuinely loathe Leah. She pulled Sam and I away from our dad at the hospital when we didn't know if he could die. To go to her mom's weekly dinner? Sam did end up snapping at her on the drive back, and Leah pulled my dad's dead card. And Sam was actually kicked out of the house when his dog accidentally hurt Mom because he wouldn't discipline the dog. She told him to get her shit together because it was unacceptable. He called her a bitch. Mom threw him out. It does upset me that my parents failed me like that, but I know they genuinely love me. I think that incident in particular wasn't reported because my parents fostered at the time for money to pay off bills and for Sam's college books and stuff, and it would have cost them their license. Sam was only home on breaks at that stage and we didn't have any kids with us. As for being guilted into babysitting, I have literally lost all compassion for the both of them. I'll call CPS myself before I let them treat that child poorly, or if God forbid, Sam tries that shit where he just leaves them with me without saying anything. They are not my family anymore. Now on to second story. Brother's wedding was child-free due to his pushy mother-in-law. Now my son refuses to have any relationship with him. I'm 46 male, a single dad. My family has always helped me in many ways, mostly babysitting when Leo was younger, and even before my son was born. We were all very close. We all live relatively close to each other, so we've been able to keep in touch with weekly gatherings, spending the holidays together, etc. Everyone loves my son and my son loved them back. However, my brother Jack was always my son's favorite person. Back when my son was 3 to 4 years old, Jack and his wife had more flexible jobs than me. Think freelancing versus a 9 to 5, so they always volunteered to look after Leo, something he loved. Almost every month they would take him to the zoo, or the aquarium, or they'd even go camping with him. As my son grew older, he started to develop the same interests as my brother, like video games, photography, and music. When Leo was 9, he told me he wanted to have the same career as his uncle. This is all to say, they were extremely close. Last year my brother informed me that he and his GF Mary were getting married. I knew that neither Jack nor his GF believed in marriage, so when I asked them about it, they told me it was all Karen's idea, my Sil's mom. Because Jack and Mary didn't care much about the wedding, and since Karen was paying for it, they let her plan everything, from the venue to the food, music, etc. Karen decided to plan a destination wedding at a fancy resort. In July of last year we received the invitation and it was addressed to both me and my son. I even had A+1 if I wanted. And as soon as the website went up, I tried to make a reservation for our hotel room. I should clarify that I had to call the hotel to make my reservation because the link wasn't working and I really couldn't risk not getting a room. When I received the email confirmation, it said room for 2 adults, but I didn't think much of it and just assumed it was an error due to the language barrier with the hotel guy. I also bought the plane tickets for us around the same time. Fast forward to January, less than a month before the wedding, when my Sil called me crying saying that Karen had made a mistake with the venue. Apparently, the resort was for adults only, so they didn't allow anyone younger than 16. My son was 13 at the time. I asked her if it would be possible for Leo and me to stay in another hotel, but they told me the whole resort was child-free, so my son wouldn't even be allowed to attend the ceremony or the reception. I was disappointed and I told my Sil I'd talk to my son about it. I knew how excited he was about his uncle's wedding, but she insisted both her and Jack wanted to tell him in person. Honestly, my son was devastated. He started crying as soon as he was told he wouldn't be able to go. He pleaded with them and even offered to give them all of his savings so they could move the wedding. After 30 minutes of this, my Sil got frustrated and just told him that he was being selfish and that this day wasn't about him. Leo eventually apologized and went to his room. After the wedding, my son just stopped talking to my brother. If Jack sent him a message, Leo would just ignore it unless it had something to do with me. For example, he would only reply if Jack asked him to tell me something because he couldn't reach me, etc. On our family gatherings, Leo would only respond to small questions like, "Can you pass the salt or help grandma with the plates?" But he would ignore my brother if Jack or Mary tried to start a conversation or ask him about school, etc. A month after the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take him for a special vacation during spring break to make up for the wedding, but my son just ignored them and he later told me he didn't want to go with them. It was heartbreaking because I knew how much he wanted to go to that place and I wasn't able to afford it yet, but he stuck to his guns. Something similar happened on Leo's birthday. He asked me if I was planning to throw him a party. I do it every year, and when I said yes, he asked me not to invite his aunt and uncle. I tried to convince him to invite them because they're family and they were really sorry, but he just said that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. My brother was crying when I told him he wasn't invited. However, things came to a head this past weekend. We were at my mom's house and the conversation of Leo's university came up. My mom asked Leo if he was still planning on going to the same university as Jack, and that he should start planning for that, but my son replied that he wasn't interested anymore and he had chosen to study something else. Then my mom said, "I thought you wanted to be like your uncle," and my son just said, "Why would I want to be like him?" At this point I intervened and told Leo he didn't have to be so rude, but the damage was already done. Both my brother and Sil heard what he said and they left shortly after. Last night my brother texted me saying I was an asshole for letting my son continue with this grudge, and he even accused me of being jealous of their relationship and that's why I wasn't doing anything to fix it. I just told him these were the consequences of his actions and that this was 100% his fault by allowing his past mother-in-law to plan the wedding when she obviously hated my child. He hung up on me. My mom and some other family members think I should force my son to forgive my brother so we can all move on, claiming there was no ill intent and it was just a small mistake. But I don't think I should. My son was clearly hurt and he should be allowed to heal and forgive them only when he's ready. Update 1. The short version is that we'll stop going to the family events for a while. I talked to my brother and he will respect my son's boundaries, and he also explained what really happened. And, above all, Leo is doing much better now. Here's the longer update in case anyone's interested in the details. The short of it is that I informed my mom that both Leo and I would stop going to the family gatherings until things calmed down and, more importantly, until he felt comfortable again. She was understandably upset, but I think she finally understood how much she had been hurting Leo. What surprised me is that my mom told me that Jack had become depressed, so she was worried about him, and that's why she was so insistent that Leo should forgive him. I basically told her that if we forced Leo to forgive my brother, we risked pushing Em away from us. As for my sister, she was also sad when I told her we'd stop going to the family gatherings, but she said she understood. However, she suggested we make our own weekly tradition so the children can still hang out, and that's what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. We decided my nibblings would come to my house one week and then Leo would hang out at hers the next. So far it seems to be working and Leo is happy with this arrangement. I think it helps that he isn't being pressured by the adults expecting him to talk to his uncle. The weekend after I posted here, I texted my brother asking him to meet me so we could talk. I had told him that I wanted to speak with him alone so Mary wasn't present. Jack immediately apologized and said how much he regretted what he had done and the things he had told me. He confirmed what I already suspected and said he was stressed because of the constant fights with Mary. He mentioned that he had considered divorce because of how bad the fights got. I may seem cruel here, but I basically told him that I didn't care about that. What I wanted was for him to tell me the truth about what the hell had happened. Jack maintains that he didn't know about the venue being child-free until last November. However, like many of you suspected, Mary had known for quite a while, maybe even the whole time. Apparently, this all started a few years back when Jack and Mary took Leo to the beach. While they were playing, my son had accidentally called Jack Dad before quickly correcting himself. From what Jack told me, it was a small mistake like when you call a teacher mom. Leo was embarrassed, but Jack just laughed it off. The catch? Jack's Mill, Karen, and Phil had joined them for that vacation and they overheard Leo when that happened. When they came back from their vacation, Karen had gone ballistic claiming she was triggered by some random kid calling Jack Dad knowing that Mary can't have children. Mary had tried to explain, and it was just a misunderstanding, but Karen became extremely toxic and abusive towards Mary and she started making demands like not inviting Leo over when Karen visited, etc. So when Jack and Mary decided to get married, and since they initially just wanted to elope and not have a party at all, Karen manipulated Mary and convinced her to let her plan the perfect wedding for her only daughter. Mary gave in because she was sick of several years of emotional manipulation and she just wanted to keep the peace. So Karen hijacked the wedding and she chose the child-free venue on purpose. Mary discovered this when the venue was booked or shortly after, but she didn't say anything because every time she tried to argue, Karen would play the victim and stuff. Mary claimed that she had tried to negotiate with the resort that an exception be made so the children could attend the ceremony/reception even if they stayed in a different hotel, but the manager stood firm on the policy. But the closer they got to the date, the more anxious she got until she finally admitted the truth to Jack in November. According to my brother, Mary exploded to Leo because of all the constant bullying and manipulation from her own mother, and she also felt extremely guilty by letting things get that far. For his part, Jack said that if he had found out before, he would have stepped in and canceled the wedding rather than exclude Leo and my sister's children. But by that point a lot of people had already booked their flights and hotel rooms, so canceling wasn't an option. In the end I told my brother that none of that excused the way they had behaved, especially his wife. She was a 40-plus-year-old woman picking a fighting with a kid. She had yelled and called him selfish when all Leo wanted was to offer the £2,000 he had saved so he could be part of Jack's special day. I reminded him that Leo looked up to him and considered his hero, and he had let him down. He had shown Leo that he wasn't important to him the way Jack was important to Leo. I also told him that I would keep supporting Leo on going no contact and I'd be going low contact with him myself. He asked me for a chance to apologize to Leo, but I told him he had already apologized. All he could do now was wait to see if one day my son would accept his apology. Jack seemed hurt, but he told me he would respect our wishes and give us time and space. As for my son, I apologized for not standing up to him and forcing him to meet with the family every week. I told him that he could decide what he wanted to do with that part of the family going forward. He seemed reluctant to stop going, but I let him know that I would support him no matter what and that I wouldn't be upset. What made me happy was that Leo suggested we could stop going to the family every week and instead we could spend more time together, he and I, doing some of the things he used to do with my brother. Last week we went to a vintage car show and next week we're going to watch Wicked. I'm not a theater guy, but it sounds fun. I also told him I was worried he had stopped doing things he liked and that he shouldn't stop just because he had a falling out with someone he cared about. Basically told him it was okay to still enjoy things by himself or with someone else. He admitted he actually wanted to do those things but stopped just to spite Jack. I decided to give him an early Christmas gift and bought him some games he had been excited about but that he had refunded after the fight with my brother. He even convinced me to play with him some Final Fantasy Online game on his PS5 while he plays on PC. I admit I have no idea what I'm doing on that game since the last Final Fantasy game I played was still in 2D, but he seems to enjoy watching me fail. Any advice here is welcome. Finally, we decided to take a trip to his dream destination for my birthday. I was a little bit sad because it's going to be the first time in almost 50 years that I don't celebrate a birthday with my brother, but I've got my son and that's all that matters. So yeah, Leo is happier and less stressed about the family. Speaking of which, I think the family is finally respecting our boundaries, so that's good too. I just hope my brother can work on his marriage. I may hate what they did, but I do want him to be happy.